It is to and I will.
I think this is a budget hearing.
Budget hearing.
It's just the general budget period. Are we doing urban renewal first?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Everybody has their. Okay. Rob, you have anything to say? Melissa?
I'm gonna close the store if people want.
Okay.
I'll shout real loud.
What if somebody comes? Sure, I'm here. Do we have a sign on the door over there to
No.
tell them to come?
They've been telling them since they walk in to go
Okay.
somewhere else.
Okay, well, as long as they can get in here, we're good.
Okay, so we'll get going here. The budget packet is very similar to the budget for the city packet. We just streamlined it to get it down to what is applicable to the Urban Renewal Agency. I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up here on page 3. You've heard all this stuff, and the budget that you have in there is what was included in the city budget packet for information. That's right. Sorry. Yes, does anybody else need a copy?
You've got an extra.
Well, wait. Where's your, they're there. Hey, Brad, you've got a regular budget, not an urban renewal.
You got the urban renewal.
I think I have the urban renewal.
Not city yet.
Okay.
Jumping ahead. Everybody have it over?
Yeah. It is. This one, right?
Says urban renewal on the top.
Yeah, same picture. Just for ease and efficiency. Yeah. Okay, so we've talked through all this at both the last urban renewal agency meeting in terms of the change in the first paragraph here on page 3. In terms of the change in beginning fund balance, that's important to know. But like I said, we've already talked about that. And then in the bottom paragraphs here, we talked about the 1.8 million from the city. Already 900,000 of it's been loaned. We've budgeted another 900 coming in to help replace some of that deficit fund balance. And then just talking about some of the general items that affect the URA back over here on page 4 in the first full paragraph, such as legal and professional services, insurance, audit, and then just staff time from the city that we pay for. And then also the Cassell switchover will be affecting the URA as we do work and record transactions in Cassell for the URA as well. And this is due to its accounting treatment as what we call a blended component unit. You don't have to know that. There's no place after this, but it shows up in the financial statements for the city of John Day. So I'm going to move, if there's no questions on the budget message, yeah.
Why do we need insurance for the URA?
It just gets part of the allocation. It has historic for the city. That's actually.
Because you have city employees working on it.
You do have city employees working on it. You have the potential for litigation. As you'll see in the budget, we're talking a number much less than $1,000.
Okay.
So it's not a huge number.
Could you repeat that technical term you said wasn't important?
Blended component unit. Yeah. I feel like a big bad CPA when I say stuff like that. So there you go.
Question about that.
Yeah.
You talked about they're connected, they're commingling.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about?
So they are two separate legal entities.
Mhm.
The URA exists separated because it is a separate government entity.
Yeah.
However, they are co-led. So the same people lead both organizations. And so for accounting treatment, we say that they're essentially one end. Even though we recognize they're separate legal entities, we report them together because really one can't truly exist without the other. So that's why we do it that way. And yes, that's why they're commingled, if you will. The city uses one shared account for all of its funds, and as a blended component unit, it reports as a fund. So that's how that works. Yep. Okay, and then policies and procedures are the exact same as the city, so I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time here. We use everything except we were able to switch over all of the language to URA or agency. And the budget calendar is the same as what was in your city packet, except the city stuff has been omitted. And then same with budget frequently asked questions, nothing exciting here. Except just to know that the city manager for the city of John Day currently does and has functioned as the administrator for the agency. Okay, we're gonna go on to page 15 here. And as I've stated already, this is exactly the same information that was included in your city budget packet for informational purposes only. So we've got this networking capital proposed by budget officer here. That's the column we're looking at on the budget for next year, 2024-25. We've got this deficit fund balance of $819,000. What that really is just cash that the city has expended that the URA did not have.
It's got
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask, where in the 2023 budget you will find that $598,000 where it came to be a $1 million?
It's on this page right here. On page 15, if you look under current year budget versus estimated,
down at the,
very top.
Yeah.
Very top of the page, you're gonna see under the budget column for 2023, 2024, you're gonna see a positive 591,000. And then next to it, on the estimated for current year 23, 24, you're gonna see a negative 534,000. The difference between those is roughly $1 million.
Right, I understand that. What I was meaning I had was, in the budget that was last year's budget, how was that floated? And how did that go about being floated? So that we missed $598,000.
I wasn't part of that process.
I know you were, and I understand. I'm more asking these,
Yeah.
I mean, there was obviously a discovery that we didn't have that money, and when that discovery was made, it should have been identified.
I actually
Well,
don't
if-
think that the discovery occurred until we started running low on cash. And then the question came up in the council meeting from Eric. Hey, why are we so low on cash? Our budget says we should have had enough money, basically. I'm paraphrasing.
So is that gonna come up in my audit?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be here's the deal, guys. A budget, it even says, I mean, net working capital is an estimate. It's a calculation. Should that have been the negative 534? Yeah, absolutely, it should have. But all it's gonna be is a little blurb that says, oh yeah, there's some internal control problems with the budget. That's it.
So we're not gonna. I mean, that's a pretty. I mean, for a budget person, that's pretty phenomenal amount of money. That's. For why we're behind.
I mean, certainly.
And to not identify as kind of being, I'm just being a John Day resident.
Right.
Would be like, well, how is that money accounted for? You know?
Yeah.
Because obviously, you know, we were running on a budget last year that was, oh, well, we have this much. Are we telling people, I mean, it's kind of a faith thing. You know, if we have faith in what we're doing, we gotta know where. And it's happening. And I hate to throw you off track, so
No,
just
you're
find out.
And that's why we've done what we can, which is in the budget message, we said it. We're showing it on the face of the budget here, and that's really all we can do. Like you asked about the audit, it's not gonna be a huge deal. At best, it's a slap on the wrist in the form of a letter from the Secretary of State saying, hey, get your act together, guys. There's no penalty, there's no fines or anything.
But we're not gonna get down to the bottom. No, we're really not gonna get down to how that happened.
That's beyond the scope of what I do for the city.
So that 20 or in 2022, 23, that negative 598 is an audited figure.
Yeah.
It is audited,
Yes, it is
and in the
audited.
audited letter, it wasn't mentioned.
We
Oh,
haven't had we haven't had.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't had.
I'm sorry, 22 is
Yeah, yeah,
22 is the,
Okay.
not 23. We haven't.
we haven't had the audit yet.
Okay, so right now, we're trying to put together a budget that we have no quote unquote specific figures.
We have good figures, they just haven't been reviewed by another CPA. That's all it is. For the URA, I'm not gonna say that the city is in perfect condition, but the URA has very little activity. And so it's pretty easy to
You've
track
done
that
audits
out.
before.
I did your audit.
Would that 598,000 been caught?
Yeah, so this 598, to clarify, that 598 is actually the ending balance from the 22 audit.
Okay.
So that is, technically, that's an audit number, 598. Everything from then on is not. But because that's your beginning balance. That's basically financial.
So the $1 million question is, I think what you're asking, and kind of what I asked in the last meeting was, how did we get from 598 audited number minus to a positive 591,605?
Right,
What happened to pause so we don't repeat it again?
but also the 22, 23 audit hasn't been done.
No.
So really that number is just something that was.
Yes, yes, yeah, for sure. And you can see the actuals for that year, 22, 23 ended up, it's at the last section of your page, last line on page 15. If you run the math for what's in the general ledger for the city, you have a negative 530. And so that number should be what you base your budget. You can see that for the actual current year, we carry that 534, 584 up to the estimated year. That's how it's supposed to be.
So, another question, on the property taxes, so $93,000 that are coming in property taxes in the city. But are those all URA houses?
93,000.
No, that's
where's
the
that?
whole entire city. That's the URA.
No, I
Well,
think
no,
he's
it's
talking about
only the URA.
here.
Yeah, it's just the URA.
The URA.
Yeah, that's all you are.
URA funds.
So that's based on all the property taxes, we'd have to have something like,
It's increment above base is how the URA is calculated. It's not just, it's not a direct line where it says you get this so many dollars per thousand or so many cents per thousand, right? Like most property taxes are calculated, it takes a base and it freezes it at a certain point in time, the creation of the URA. And anything above that is what creates your property taxes.
Basically.
So any, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of layman's terms, my understanding is anything that's done on in the URA program that increases the value.
Yes.
All the value increases are that reflect that revenue that you see in that. Yeah.
because they're coming from property tax.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
It's a
So-
portion of the
Okay, so
property.
my property taxes were like 31. Okay, so if you divide $3,100, just 3,000 as a point into 93, that's like. Yeah,
But it is.
Yeah, it's not
That-
gonna be all your property.
That's no, it's not how it works.
so what you're saying is out of the $350,000 that were taken in property taxes, then the city 9,300 of it's
It's,
gonna go.
it's not just the city.
93.
It's tax increment for every entity that would be taxed in the whole URA area.
Parks and Rec district,
Yep, county,
library.
Yeah. rural fire, if it's outside city, yeah.
So really, in reality, the money that's being drawn from, people who got money from the URA, the people of John Day are paying for the URA.
Yeah, the people in the URA service area are paying URA tax.
I wanted to understand.
Well, up to the point where there is no more.
Right.
And so that's
And then
what's
you get
happened
over
is now the taxpayers, the city of John Day, have taken out a loan with their good faith and credit because the URA didn't have enough money in the bank, there's not enough taxes that come into URA to make it pencil out. And that is in URAs, in the defenses, that is something that's predicted. First couple of 3-5 years, you're gonna be at a loss. And then if, once enough construction gets done, and I'm playing devil's advocate because I'm not a big URA fan, but once enough construction gets done and enough tax increases have come in, then eventually you get to a break point where you start to break even and make it, and make, you won't make money, but you break even where it's sustainable, where the money going out to the URA is in theory equal to or less than the money coming in from those new tax, from those improvements to the properties. And that makes, I mean, it's, and that's just, I mean, and so when there's not enough money coming in, the city is on the hook for making it, we're gonna.
We're subsidizing it.
Yeah, we have to subsidize URA. Problem, I think the challenge is what's raising the question is, we've had to subsidize it more than I think we initially thought we were going to. With that 1.8 million. I mean, I know there was discussion in council in the past about it, but I don't think, I certainly didn't understand. Just a citizen out on the street until I really got into it. And so now we took out this $900,000 loan, which is a bill, which is a bill to the URA. You have to make a payment on it. And what's the payment? Roughly 90,000.
Now
That's gonna be
it's gonna be.
I don't know, the 900.
For the 900.
Was
60,000.
So with 93,000 coming in and a payment of 63,000, you know, you already have some other costs too in the budget, but that kind of gets closer to kind of break even. When you take out another 900, because you're short 890 some thousand, like we are, now the payment is 128,000, but you're only bringing in 93,000 total. And so that 93,000 has to cover the payment and any other URA expenses, like paying the city back for SDC and different things that, you know, are part of this
Other
complex.
obligations.
You know, and so, the city's on the hook. I think that's how I heard it. These guys are the experts.
Yes, the 93,000 is your property tax. The only others, go ahead.
So right now, as the URA is written, we have some problems.
Mhm.
Do we need to possibly revisit the URA and this is,
Yeah.
and change some things that this would be a good idea?
Yeah, and I think we're on the path to doing that. It's probably outside the scope of this particular meeting, but I think at our next URA meeting, actual URA committee meeting, where it's just the council members, not budget, we're not gonna slow the budget committee down with that. But that would be a decision for the URA board. And to how do we address that moving forward? We had some preliminary discussions, some decisions were made in the last URA meeting. And we'll probably refine that moving forward, speculating, but we'll have an opportunity to do that.
All right, so the only other source of revenue for the URA is the $925,000 loan from the city of John Day, which is just passed through from Business Oregon. So that's where that's coming from. Any questions on the revenue? Okay, moving on to page 16. Yeah, super simple budget. There's just not a lot of room in here to do anything special. The audit, so the URA as a separate legal entity, even though it reports inside the city, it's spent enough money that it gets its own.
Yep.
So that's 15,000 is what we budgeted. It needs 23 and 24. We would hope that those can be done in the current budget year, and so we budgeted 15, which honestly is probably a little on the low side.
Mhm.
But the individual line items don't matter as much. It's materials and services. This is a cost that came through both budgets. The individual line items are informative so that we can communicate to you what we plan to spend money on. But the ones that matter in terms of overexpending our budget is your total materials and services line item in this case. So we've got budget audit 15,000, development incentives. I'm gonna come back to that because it's really just a part. And then insurance, to Chris's point, $600 is what insurance is allocated. Administration, we actually reduced that. We're trying to keep this as lean as possible. So we've got 5,000 coming back to the city. Legal and professional, I mean, you could put in legal, well, there's another line for professional, but you got legal. We anticipate that there could be significant costs for legal in there, so 25,000 is the budget for that. And other professional services is me. I think we're gonna hire, we talked about this at the last meeting, hire another consultant to deal with some of that planning and everything for the URA. So you got 10,000 there, and then Cassell is the 3,000 because we're onboarding consultants here. So let me come back to now the development incentives I skipped. So every time you have to propose a balance, we have SDCs to pay for. You'll notice those aren't in there. Where we're essentially saying, hey, city, which is us, right?
Does everybody understand what this is?
System
System development charge.
Yep. So
I didn't understand.
Well, why don't you explain it then?
yeah,
They-
it's a charge.
Have something for that.
Yeah, it's a charge almost all cities do. That charges you based on your impact to the system. So if you build a new house, you're gonna flush more toilets, you're gonna, you know, water your lawn more, you're putting impact on the system. So you will there's a charge, the cities go through a methodology, you have a consultant that creates how much it would be. And so when you hear people the line I always give is when you hear contractors and they're always exasperated about, it cost me 25,000 before I even put a shovel in the dirt. That's part of those charges. And so a lot of cities, there are a lot more cities can do water, sewer, traffic, parks and rec. And so there's a myriad of SDCs you can have. We only have water and sewer. And so those are for every house that's built or every development that gets built, those are charged. And so when we made these development agreements,
Yep.
part of that was the SDCs would be paid by the URA to the city. And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So anyway, we didn't budget for those. So the SDCs are essentially an IOU from an unwritten IOU between the URA and the city at this juncture. But we're more concerned about having operating capital in the city because SDCs cannot be expended for anything except actual developments. Building out pipe, building a residence, things like that, yeah, expansion. So that's why we're holding on to that, knowing that eventually we're gonna have to pay for it, but we also on the hook for development incentives. So if they build a house on any of the contracted developments, put that $1.8 million into, we are contractually obligated to pay those development incentives, even if we put this on a freeze, even if we do anything.
Question. So if you look at the development incentives and you look at what was paid out in 2021 and 2022, and then last year, that's well over almost close to $2 million over.
Right.
So is that where some of the 500,000 that we are in the hole is coming from?
So the $1 million that we talked about is a difference between expectation and reality. That's all it is. So we expected the budget would not be nearly as tight as it actually is. That's all it was. We knew that those dollars were going to be spent. No one's expending unappropriated funds. There was a budget line item for those, even if it was based on erroneous information, there was still a line item for all of it.
I understand that. I'm just wondering how, when we took a $925,000 loan, we spent over $2 million.
That's the subsidy the city has paid that caused the deficit fund balance in the URA.
So basically, we've paid $1 million already in
Yeah.
city funds.
Yeah, that's why we have to do the loan.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can't rebound. I mean, if you cut off all spending for, we actually ran the numbers on this. If you cut off all spending from the URA and just use the URA and didn't take the 925 loan, you'd spend years. I mean, longer than the life of the URA paying back the city.
How much outstanding incentives do we have at this point?
Because it's based on a percentage of the increase of value
We can't
of the home. We have no idea.
We have no idea.
It's set for new build, it's 7%.
Yes, and
Yes.
remodels are 15
Right, and so some of these can be $21,000. That's kind of where we figured that's.
per house.
Per
that
house.
hasn't been built. For the developments, just so
So
what,
how many lots do we have that are outstanding in an incentive program that have already been developed and are all onto our books?
I think only one.
That are
so
going to
far.
come onto our books is a different question. than
Yeah.
How many lots do we have that are developable? As of January 1st, we'll only had one house. And January 1st is the cutoff every year. But as far as how many lots are developable,
You have the Ridge, Holstrom's is 4, the Ridge is, I want to say 10 or 12. And then, Ironwood, I think 20.
so if they all came in one year, we couldn't afford.
Yeah,
Well, that's highly
we'd be broke.
The way the URA is structured now.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brad. I just said,
How many houses do we already have in the URA that have been built with the incentives that have been given?
I don't know what that number.
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I think I know, yeah, it might be,
And then there's also remodels in there.
Yeah.
Those qualify as well, so.
yeah.
It's
But-
hard to say.
With the pause on the URA, right now, the URA, the city, we're only dealing with those 3 developments right now. Pending what the URA board decides to do in the future. Because we have all those, I mean, we're talking about the housing incentives and the SDCs for all 3 of those subdivisions.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't include the SDCs. That's the 21,000 average per house, does not include the SDCs.
Which
another,
are
what,
about
10 or 20,000. a piece?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so that's why we're saying. We pump the brakes, that's all. I was gonna do some math. Okay, any questions on the expense? Yeah, we plugged everything we have into development. And that's not really, at this point, it's not in our control. So when houses are built, we pay them.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the budget presentation from the URA.
Any other questions? Have any other questions?
Well, to me, I would definitely like to know I mean, if I was a good tracker, I would be able to track down everywhere the money went so that we know kind of what pond we're in at least, what type of fish are in the pond, because, it seems as though we've used a lot of money, city money too, and it'd be interesting to see where that money's going and who's it going to, and how is You know, I know you don't know that, maybe the council members know that.
No.
We know
have
exactly.
that.
But who was it allocated to? Who's the
You-
big fish in the pond and who's the smaller fish and who are the fish that maybe were thrown out of the pond and not considered,
So,
you know?
so
That's a different question.
that's a different, that's.
We can tell you where the checks.
I can tell you, so just from, and this is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding, and I'll just give you the history as I know it, and I could be wrong. We have a URA set up, which I am not opposed to URAs, I think they're good, with a housing incentive program, which was unique, to tell the truth. Most URAs are done in commercial districts because the appreciation and value is quicker and fast, and you see more revenue come in. But given the the nature of the state and needing more housing, it was unique. The person that worked, I will say this, the person that set up our URA, the consultant, Lane Howard, is one of the best. She's the guru. She's one of the best in the state. I mean, she is URA. And so the URA program itself isn't a problem. The housing initiatives that were set up isn't really a problem. The numbers were there, and the URA probably would be okay with the way it was set up to run with those incentives. The issue is we took out a $1.8 million loan before we probably knew that we could pay the incentives and the loan back, and then took half of it, the 900,000, for three developers, and gave 1.8 to those three developers, and didn't take out the rest of the 900. So you have this big deficit, which ate into the city's money, cash flow, because there are bank accounts. So we're going to spend, and then, there's some incentives that were given to the developers also on top of it. So that's kind of what happened with the flow of money. I think we just got ahead of ourselves. Rob's famous word, pinch point. We're in a pinch point. The URA revenue is going to go up every year. We know that. So, but the city's going to subsidize it for a while until we get out of this.
So we said in our statement that the economic barometer cannot be really identified because it goes up and down.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're right on that, we have 4 houses that could be built on Holcomb or Holstrom,
Yeah.
and 10 houses, we'll just say 10 houses at Mahogany and 20 houses at Ironwood. That's 35 houses, just random. Are we gonna have 35 people move into the area in the next? Well, you've played it out until 2029.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's,
So
if you build it, they will come. I don't know.
That's
I mean, yeah, that's the intent. I think if I think, and by the way, there's a road we have to build for Holstrom's too, that we're on the hook for, that we
That is
still
not
need,
budgeted.
that is not budgeted,
Do
but
most cities do stuff like this, the housing development and all this?
no,
so there, cities in Oregon, yeah, there is incentives for building. You can waive SDCs, you can do some housing initiatives or incentives, that cities do them. I haven't seen, and maybe they're out there, but I have never seen one do all of them to work together at once. It's usually one carrot, developer has buy-in, and the development agreements also should have had like a time limit, because now we're out forever with them because we don't have any kind of specific time limit. These houses have to be built. So, again, will come out of this is just the citizens in the city is subsidizing the URA for a while, and that's what's going to happen. I have no doubt these houses will probably get built. The hospital always needs doctors, teachers are needed, professionals are needed. We're going to be hiring a finance director at a pretty good salary, but they're going to need a place to live, so it's kind of this recruitment needing housing, and that is an issue. And so, yeah, it's just, we're in a pinch point right now.
That's the word.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, really, I think that it needs to be looked at for the future. I mean, we can't go back and
Right,
fix it with, apparently with the people that we've already got involved, but for the future, you know, we need to have things in order.
Yeah, and one of the,
Set up better.
yeah, and one of the things the URA board recommended at their last meeting is we hire a consultant that deals with URAs and finances and comes in and reviews the whole entire program and looks at it holistically and down to, you know, every detail, and then makes recommendations like, here's where I see these things happen, here's where I think you're going, here's how I think you can get out of this, here's where I think it will be beneficial. And so we will probably be bringing that contract to the URA board fairly soon.
It's needed.
Will that be in other professional services?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
probably
we
have
hope
to,
that's enough to
we'll
cover it.
probably have to swap, I was gonna talk to you, legal and professional services will probably be used opposite, but again,
We
it's
should
the
probably-
materials and services.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, we can swap them, but
Single family homes right now aren't the hot thing. The two major multi-family dwellings were before they got built. The two major ones. Standing, they can't, I wish they'd build more, because that's what we need right now.
I'm not,
it's
Talking
about the duplexes,
The duplexes.
that's true. Townhomes, multifamily
Yeah.
is big. But I don't
only
think any of
problem with
these,
that is the sustainable. Sustainability in low income housing.
These aren't low income.
These aren't low income.
market rate, market
These are
rate.
market rate.
Yeah.
And they're charging a pretty penny, I'll tell you.
Here
And,
in Conde.
Yeah.
In John Day,
Yeah.
They built some in Prairie.
renting is exceedingly expensive right now. Everywhere.
Did those qualify for
It was-
are you talking about the,
Russia and
Sally
Sally?
Knowles? Yes, she got into next. Yeah. She got,
Yeah, they did.
back, we just finished the last week in Senate.
Go down my Bill Street Park.
Right,
Down there.
move on.
We need a motion.
Okay,
You got to open the public hearing, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I said that.
Need a public hearing.
Yes, you gotta have a public
I
hearing.
haven't seen it.
okay, at this point, I am going to open the public meeting.
Public-
Comments?
Public
and
hearing.
questions, queries,
Sorry.
whatever. And, so I'm going to ask if there are any questions or comments from the audience. Tammy,
I just got here, so I haven't been listening to the budget stuff. I did hear Jody's question though, and I can tell you that I worked in Canyon City, and Canyon Mountain Heights subdivision was put in. And the developer was responsible for putting in the infrastructure and bringing it up to city code. The idea of the city paying for the infrastructure so the developer can sell lots and make money to me is absolutely absurd. That's just my comment. And the duplexes that were built, the city did not pay for the infrastructure down there to my knowledge.
Just as a kind of a note to that, I worked in surveying for many years in Portland. And they were going to do subdivisions in the eastern portion out Boston. They did not put in any subdivisions because the city was not paid for the main trunk line infrastructure that they do where they want to do. And for all my years in subdivision, quite extensive from like 89 to 2008. No URAs ever paid for any of that. It was all on the development. What we put back into his lots. And that's where he got his money. So this is kind of interesting that we're, you know, we have 3 developers that got most of the money. Kind of sends a red flag.
Right by the rules.
I'm not saying that there was anything wrong, it's just, I think the barometer is, you know, are we giving too much incentive to one? Could we give incentive to other builders that, you know, maybe could use a little help with some of the things that they do? That's just my question. No.
Okay, any other public comments? All right,
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
first motion. Any
What time is it?
discussion? Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Call it.
Five, yeah.
Deal
you
it.
just-
Are we going to?
Yep, it's resolution
Okay,
time.
so, we need a motion.
And I have this, or we have this handy dandy template, if you'd like to read the motion, so you don't have to come up with it on your own.
I'll make a motion. Yeah. And Darren got out of this.
I know.
Yeah, it's. I move that the John Day Urban Renewal District Budget Committee approve the presented approve the URA budget as presented.
And what resolution number?
It's not a resolution, it's a it means-
We do that.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Motion, we have second, all those in favor, signify by raising your hand and saying. Aye. It's, yeah,
Cheers.
I'm trying to see if anyone,
Yeah.
let that wait.
yep,
You can do two.
We done it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll make another motion. I move to approve the request of the Grant County Assessor for the John Day Urban Renewal District area for the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes under section 1C, article 9 of the Oregon Constitution, ORS chapter 457.
What is that?
basically allowing us to get our taxes for the
Taxes.
URA, the
That's
revenue
how you
that we need,
legally
the
describe the tax.
93,000,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a component of approving the budget.
Yeah.
You approve the budget and then you approve bringing in the taxes for the budget.
For most entities, you're actually approving a rate, but as we were talking about earlier, it's not exactly a rate. It's
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
So I don't know if I can.
Thank you, Brad.
Second, all those in favor, signify by
Aye.
saying aye, okay. Unanimous. Okay, we,
There's no further discussion.
no further discussion.
I think she adjourned the meeting.
We can adjourn the meeting of the URA budget. We will pick up with the rest of the budget
At
for the
6:30.
city at
45 minutes.
45 minutes. So if you
And for those on the recording, it's going to be a separate meeting, so I'm going to click out of this one and then we'll come back on at a later time.
End of the budget meeting, city budget meeting.